Hello everyone, you're watching some escalation gameplay, clutches, and other clips while I talk about a very interesting topic I've wanted to cover for a while, that being game types in Gears 4 and in the future of Gears 5. I want to release a series of videos that just gives my opinions and suggestions on what I think Gears 5 would benefit from, largely inspired by B-Chap's series Shifting Gears, which I have been on a couple times. If you don't already know, B-Chaps is making a bunch of videos basically suggesting things that would benefit Gears in the future, and it's fantastic. So I'll link his channel in the description. But for here on my channel, this will be my sort of repository of my personal ideas and views, and we're going to start off with game types. So ironically, Gears 4 actually has less game types now than it started off with, and the reason for that is because Arms Race and Warzone has been removed. And I agree with the decision to do that since they weren't popular game types, and this helps consolidate what we do have. But it's just funny when you think about it that with all the new content that was released, we actually have less game types than when we started. And that's if you exclude the special events, playlists, and whatnot, which I do exclude because they're not really permanent. We are going to see the 2v2 game type coming up soon, which I think is going to be amazing for so many different reasons and really add some freshness to Gears 4, and I'll be playing that a lot. Before I get into future suggestions, I just want to talk about some of the things I think Gears 4 really got right when it came to game types, and of course we got to start off with escalation. The community has asked for a long time that a competitive, objective game type gets introduced, and Gears 4 delivered that in a very innovative, unique way, and I think escalation is here to stay for good reason. The only thing I'd like to see is if it's possible to beta test a shorter version of escalation that would maybe go up to round 5. That would be pretty nice, just because there's like a huge quitting problem when you're playing online, or the games can go on for such a long time that getting to 7 rounds is sometimes a burden, to be perfectly honest. I think up to 5 rounds could be challenging given the way the respawn timer and putting weapons down works, but it would be really cool if we could just even try and see if there's a way to adjust what we have. But very happy escalation has joined the Gears world. Dodgeball is another new one that we got. Really big fan of it. Even if I'm not playing it all the time, I think it's a bit more casual. It allows you to enjoy the elements of execution that you know and love, like the intensity of trying to clutch, but in a more laid-back manner since you can bring people back in, and it's just good, constant fun. Of course, we have Guardian and King of the Hill, which are classics. I think Guardian has a bit of an issue with spawns. There's so many montages you can find of people just spawn killing people in Guardian because there's no spawn protection, but Guardian is another great game type that I really don't have to go into a lot of detail. You all know what Guardian's all about. Other than that though, and we have the classic execution, we haven't seen anything new aside from the special events playlist in Gears 4. And that's a bit of a problem in my opinion, just because new game types allow you to enjoy the game in a new, different way. So while it probably takes a lot of time to introduce, develop new game types, that was something I was really hoping we'd see in Gears 4 at some point to help keep the game fresh and to keep the longevity of Gears 4. But at this point, it doesn't look like we're going to see too much, with the exception of the 2v2 playlist. So, leaving Gears 4 behind and where we're at, the question becomes, what do we want to see in the future? Right away, I think one of the big gaps in Gears 4 is just that we don't have modes that are, say, free-for-all. Up until very soon, we didn't have a 2v2 permanent playlist. And if you've played Gears in even a 3v3 type setting, it's a drastically different game than 5-on-5. My sort of issue, not a massive issue, but something I've noticed about Gears 4 is that every single playlist is 5v5 to start, which in my opinion hinders the variety the game is able to deliver. Being in a free-for-all setting, even a double setting or 3v3 setting, makes the experience so much more different and thus keeps it fresh. And that's why I would have hoped that those are playlists that would have been introduced earlier, introduced period, or even as a special event. Especially if you're a player who doesn't want to have to queue up and roll the dice on getting a random team and hoping that they're good enough. You might want to just go into free-for-all and take your chances alone as a lone wolf. Or maybe you just want a more hectic experience, so you hop into free-for-all. Or maybe you just have one buddy that you like to play with a lot, which is probably highly likely given, people are busy. You probably don't have forever to play Gears. So to have a 2v2 playlist is just excellent. And whether that be Wingman or Brothers to the End, I don't care as long as there's a 2v2 playlist. My preference is Brothers to the End, which is just your classic 2v2 execution. I think that just makes for more fun in my opinion. Wingman kind of stressed me out, to be honest, but it was a great game type. I would also love to see another new objective competitive game type, except instead of a respawn game type like escalation, I want to see a non-respawn game type, and that's just the classic bomb game type that everybody talks about. For me, the only other thing I could think of is like a sort of thrash ball type objective elimination game type where maybe you have to deliver the thrash ball across the map, but that's essentially like almost a CTF elimination or an objective bomb game type, that is. But my argument here is that Gears would benefit if it introduced a non-respawn objective game type, because in my opinion, one of the great things that Gears has been able to offer that other games can't is just that feeling of intensity when you're outnumbered and it's you against the world, or a couple players in a situation where you know that you're a man down and there is no respawn that's going to happen. It can be more methodical, and that's why I love execution. But the problem with execution is you can get these stalemates since there's not always a purpose, or it's not always in the best interest of players to push. So I'd love to see if we had that sort of game type mixed up in the batch of what we have in the competitive realm. Now, another thing that deserves discussion, and some good discussion too, is the introduction of casual modes or casual game types. I love playing Gears competitively, but even I get sometimes exhausted or fed up with the kind of level of gameplay or how hard I have to perform just to enjoy the game or do well. People are really good at Gears. Gears' strength has always been that it allows these intense games and fights between people, but even your battle-hardened Gears player needs to take a break from time to time, and they don't want to be in these stressful situations of having to play at their highest level. We need some casual modes that people can always access. The special events playlists are great for that, but they're not permanent. I love the variety that they offer, but I'm thinking of something along the lines of the action sack that we've seen in Halo, where it's just a lot of different things that tweak the gameplay and just literally make it fun. The purpose is more so to have fun than it is to win. On the Shifting Gears podcast I was on, one of the people had suggested that there be like a mode where you rubber band across the map, so it doesn't matter what distance you are. When you slip into cover, you will slide into whatever the first cover in front of you is. So it'd be like elastic bands fighting on the map. That's a really cool idea. Or just snipers only, or bulltalks only, or maybe you can roadie run and shoot at the same time, or whatever that may be. I'm thinking crab walking, that glitch in Gears 1. Just a lot of different variety of silly things that people could pop into and enjoy themselves without worrying about their rank or having to play so hard. I'm sure you can get that from the social quick play playlist, but even that playlist I found, or the competitive warm-up, can be pretty intense at times, and the purpose is not always for good casual fun. So I'd love to see just some silly game modes that are consolidated into one playlist. So I have a little bit more time here, and one thing I will briefly mention is Horde. I think the Coalition has done a stand-up job with Horde mode, with the variants it's offered and just the experience. I don't play it too much. The only suggestion I could offer is if it's possible to have a PvP aspect to it where Beast mode is reintroduced. If you remember, it was in Gears 3, but it was only PvE. And in Judgment we had Overrun, which was a lot of fun, but I think one of the problems with Overrun is it required its own set of maps. Beast mode didn't. It actually worked with the regular multiplayer maps, so if that's something that we could see in Gears 5, I think that'd be a really cool mode to try out. Could be casual, could be competitive, and once again, if it's possible, why not add it to the mix? Anyway, that's all I really have time for. If you have your own views on what you think Gears 4 got right, what it got wrong, what Gears 5 needs, please feel free to share, and if you have any suggestions of topics you'd want me to cover, let me know, and as always, thanks for watching.